Princess Anne has just taken a historic step inside the royal household, filing a formal executive complaint against Queen Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles. This isn't a minor disagreement, it's a full-scale battle over a heavily protected royal estate that pushed Britain's hardest-working royal past her absolute breaking point. By the time Camilla realized the trap her son had stepped into, the damage was completely irreversible. What did Tom do to the royal grounds to trigger Anne's fury? Let's look at the secret filings, the complaint that shook the palace.
We are back with a very special edition of Today Food, joined by Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla. He's out with a new cookbook. It's called Cooking and the Crown.
There are moments inside the British royal family that never make the evening news. Moments that happen behind closed doors, in oak-paneled rooms, in quiet corridors where only the most senior members of the institution are permitted to walk. Most of those moments stay buried. Staff are briefed on discretion. Courtiers are reminded of their obligations, and the palace moves on, presenting its usual calm face to a watching world. But some moments are too significant to contain. Some decisions send ripples so deep through the institution that even the most disciplined royal household cannot fully suppress them. What Princess Anne did in late January 2026 was one of those moments. She filed a formal royal complaint, not a quiet word in a private meeting, not a carefully worded letter designed to be ignored. A formal complaint, documented, witnessed, and submitted through the official channels of the royal household, with the full weight of her position behind it. And the target of that complaint was Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, the stepson of King Charles III. Let that sink in for a moment. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, a woman who has served the crown for over 5 decades without a single significant scandal, a woman who once told a kidnapper to simply go away during an attempted abduction in 1974 and meant every word of it, had decided that enough was enough. She had watched. She had waited. She had given the situation every reasonable opportunity to resolve itself quietly, and when it did not, she acted with the kind of decisive precision that has defined her entire public life. The question that immediately gripped everyone inside the palace was simple. What exactly had Tom Parker Bowles done to bring the Princess Royal to this point? The answer, as we will lay out across this story, involves a protected royal estate, a commercial scheme that crossed every line the late Queen Elizabeth II had drawn, and a pattern of behavior that Anne had been monitoring for far longer than anyone outside the palace walls realized. But before we get to the details of what Tom did, we need to understand the complaint itself, because the mechanism Anne chose to use tells you everything about how seriously she viewed the situation. A formal royal complaint within the household is not a casual instrument. It is not the kind of thing a senior royal reaches for because they are annoyed or inconvenienced. It is a deliberate, measured, and very public internal declaration that a line has been crossed. It triggers a review process involving senior courtiers, legal advisors connected to the privy purse, and in serious cases, the monarch himself. It creates a paper trail, it demands a response, and it cannot simply be wished away by the person it targets or the people protecting them. Sources close to the royal household confirmed that the complaint was submitted in the final week of January 2026. It named Tom Parker Bowles directly. It outlined a series of actions he had allegedly taken in connection with a specific protected estate, and it requested a formal review of those actions under the terms of the royal household's internal governance framework. The palace's initial response was silence. Not the comfortable silence of an institution with nothing to hide, but the tight, pressurized silence of a household that has just had something explosive dropped into its lap and has not yet decided how to handle it. Staff described the atmosphere in those first 48 hours as deeply uncomfortable. Senior courtiers were summoned to meetings that had not been scheduled. Legal advisors arrived at Buckingham Palace on a Tuesday morning without any prior announcement. And somewhere inside Clarence House, Camilla received news that would make every tension she had already been navigating with William look like a minor disagreement. Her son was at the center of a formal royal complaint filed by her stepdaughter, the woman who had never fully welcomed her into the family, the woman who, unlike William, had never been required by public duty or emotional circumstance to extend any particular warmth, the woman who had simply watched, assessed, and waited. Now Anne had moved, and the move was not reversible. For Tom Parker Bowles, the complaint represented a catastrophic collapse of a carefully constructed position. He had spent years building his profile as a food writer, a cultural commentator, and a man of taste and refinement, with legitimate connections to the highest levels of British society. He had leveraged his proximity to the royal family carefully, never overreaching so dramatically that it invited institutional pushback, or so he believed. What he had not fully accounted for was Princess Anne. He had not accounted for the fact that she does not make noise before she acts. She does not send warnings through intermediaries or allow her displeasure to leak to the press as a signal. She simply watches, builds her case, and when the moment is right, she moves with the kind of finality that leaves no room for negotiation. Royal insiders confirm that by the time Tom learned the complaint had been filed, it had already been received and logged by the relevant household authorities. There was no opportunity to intercept it. No window to make a phone call to the right person and make it disappear. Anne had ensured that it landed exactly where she intended it to land. The question hanging over the palace in the days that followed was not whether the complaint would be taken seriously. With Princess Anne's name attached to it, that was never in doubt. The question was what it would uncover, and the answer to that question begins with an estate, a scheme, and a level of audacity that even seasoned royal watchers found difficult to believe. Keep watching, because what Tom Parker Bowles actually did is far worse than the complaint alone suggests. The estate at the center of everything. To understand why Princess Anne reached the point of filing a formal complaint, you have to understand the estate at the heart of this story. Because this was not a minor disagreement over access to a country house or a petty family argument dressed up in legal language. This was something far more serious. And the moment you understand what this estate meant to Queen Elizabeth II and what Tom Parker Bowles attempted to do with it, the full weight of Anne's response begins to make complete sense. The estate in question is Elmidge Park, a sprawling protected property sitting on approximately 380 acres of ancient Wiltshire countryside. Rolling meadows, dense woodland, a private lake, and at its center, a Georgian manor house that has stood largely unchanged since the 1700s. It is not a property that appears in tourist guides or public royal records. It has never been photographed for a magazine spread or featured in a television documentary about royal life. Its value, according to private assessments reviewed by senior household officials, sits at somewhere in the region of £42 million. But again, the financial figure is almost beside the point. Elmidge Park was one of Queen Elizabeth II's most personal properties. Not her most famous, not her most photographed, her most personal. She had inherited it quietly through a private trust arrangement in the 1960s, and from that point forward, it existed outside the formal structures of the Crown Estate entirely. No parliamentary oversight, no public accountability. A private holding in the fullest sense of the word. What made Elmidge Park extraordinary was not its size or its financial value. It was what the Queen had done with it over 6 decades of private stewardship. She had used it as a genuine retreat. Not the carefully managed, staff-heavy retreats of Balmoral and Sandringham, but a place where she could arrive with minimal staff, walk the grounds alone, and think without the weight of ceremony pressing down on every moment. Former aides who accompanied her there speak about it in almost reverent terms. One described it simply as the place where she was most herself. Over the decades, she had also made very deliberate decisions about what Elmidge Park would and would not become. She had turned down multiple proposals to incorporate it into official royal itineraries. She had refused suggestions that it be open to the public even partially. And in 2019, she had taken the additional step of having it formally protected under a private covenant that restricted any commercial use, any structural alteration, and any change of purpose without the explicit approval of its designated heir. That designated heir was Prince William. The covenant was drawn up quietly, witnessed by 2 senior legal advisors, and lodged with the Royal Archives in the autumn of 2019. It was, In the words of one archivist who reviewed it later, one of the most comprehensively protective legal documents she had ever seen, connected to a private royal property. Every conceivable avenue for commercial exploitation had been identified and closed. Every potential loophole had been anticipated and sealed. Queen Elizabeth had built a legal fortress around Elmidge Park, and she had done it, sources now confirm, because she had already seen early signs that certain people close to the family were beginning to view royal heritage properties not as sacred trusts, but as commercial opportunities waiting to be unlocked. She was right to be concerned, because by the middle of 2025, Tom Parker Bowles had identified Elmidge Park as the centerpiece of his most ambitious commercial venture yet. The details of what Tom was planning are, even by the standards of everything else that has emerged from inside the palace in recent months, genuinely staggering. According to documents reviewed by royal insiders, Tom had been developing a proposal for what he described internally as a royal heritage hospitality destination. The language was careful and polished. The ambition behind it was anything but modest. The plan called for the conversion of the Georgian manor house into a boutique luxury hotel with a maximum of 22 guest rooms, each priced at no less than £3,000 per night. The private lake was earmarked for exclusive fly fishing experiences marketed to wealthy international clientele. The woodland was to be cleared in sections to accommodate a series of luxury glamping structures, positioned as immersive countryside retreats for corporate groups and high-net-worth individuals. And at the center of the entire operation, positioned as its flagship attraction, was a fine dining restaurant to be headed by Tom himself. A space that would carry the implicit endorsement of royal heritage in everything from its branding to its crockery. The name proposed for the overall venture, sources reveal, was the Royal Wild at Elmidge. Every element of the branding was designed to trade directly on the property's connection to the crown. Tom had even gone as far as commissioning architectural renderings. A hospitality consultant had been retained. Preliminary conversations had reportedly taken place with investors from the Gulf region and a luxury travel consortium based in Switzerland. The machine was already running. There was just one problem, a significant one. Elmidge Park was legally protected against exactly this kind of scheme. The covenant Queen Elizabeth had put in place in 2019 made every single element of Tom's plan not just inadvisable, but legally impossible without William's explicit approval. And William had not been asked. He had not been consulted. He had not been informed. Tom Parker Bowles had been developing a multi-million-pound commercial venture on a protected royal estate without the knowledge or consent of the man who legally controlled it. And he had been doing it for the better part of 8 months before anyone with the authority to act found out. The person who found out was Princess Anne. And what she discovered when she began pulling on that thread was not just a business plan that had gone too far. It was a deliberate, sustained attempt to circumvent the legal protections that Queen Elizabeth herself had put in place. That was the moment Anne stopped watching. That was the moment she reached for the formal complaint process and did not look back. But how exactly did Anne find out? And what did she uncover when she started looking more closely? That answer is coming, and it is more unsettling than you might expect. Anne's long memory and her breaking point. There is something you need to understand about Princess Anne before you can fully appreciate what she did next. She is not a reactive person. She does not make decisions based on emotion or impulse. She does not reach for dramatic gestures when quieter ones will do. In 50-plus years of royal service, she has built a reputation as the most disciplined, most dependable, and most quietly formidable member of the entire family. She turns up. She does the work. She says what she means and means what she says. And she never, under any circumstances, acts without being completely certain of her ground. Which means that by the time she filed that formal complaint in January 2026, she had been certain of her ground for a very long time. Sources close to Anne confirm that she had first become aware of unusual activity connected to Elmidge Park in the spring of 2025. It did not arrive as a dramatic revelation. It arrived the way most important information arrives, inside royal circles, as a fragment, a detail that did not quite fit, a name mentioned in a conversation where it had no obvious business being mentioned. A senior member of the household staff at Elmidge Park had quietly flagged to Anne's office that an individual connected to the wider royal family had made 2 unannounced visits to the estate within a single month. The visits were not accompanied by any formal notification to William's office. They were not logged through the standard household protocols that govern access to protected royal properties. They simply happened. And the individual who made them was Tom Parker Bowles. Anne did not immediately escalate. That is not how she operates. Instead, she began asking quiet questions through the right channels. She requested access logs for the estate covering the previous 6 months. She spoke privately with 2 members of the household staff who had been present during the visits, and she made a discreet inquiry with the legal office responsible for administering the Covenant Trust that governed Elmidge Park. What came back confirmed her suspicion that something was significantly wrong. Tom's visits had not been isolated. Over a period of approximately 7 months between April and November of 2025, he had visited Elmidge Park on at least 6 separate occasions. On at least 2 of those visits, he had been accompanied by individuals who had no connection to the royal family whatsoever. One was identified as an architect. Another was described by staff as a hospitality consultant who spent considerable time photographing the interior of the manor house and taking measurements in several of the ground floor rooms. Think about what that means. Tom Parker Bowles had been bringing commercial consultants onto a protected royal estate. He had been allowing them to photograph and assess a property that did not belong to him, that he had no legal authority over, and that was explicitly protected against the kind of commercial conversion he was so clearly planning. For Anne, this was not simply a matter of legal procedure being ignored. It was something more personal than that, and to understand why, you need to go back. Not to 2025, but to a much earlier chapter of this family's story. Princess Anne has watched the commercial exploitation of royal heritage cause damage to this institution before. She watched it happen slowly and then all at once, during the 1980s and 1990s, when a series of decisions by various family members turned the monarchy's private life into a public entertainment product. She watched the consequences of that transformation play out across decades of scandal, public mistrust, and institutional fragility. And she drew conclusions from what she witnessed that have shaped every decision she has made in royal life since. She believes, with a conviction that those close to her describe as absolute, that the moment the royal family begins treating its heritage as a commercial asset, it begins losing the one thing that makes it worth anything at all: its dignity, its separateness, its ability to stand above the marketplace and represent something that cannot be bought or packaged or sold at £3,000 per night. She had watched Tom Parker Bowles build his career on the periphery of royal association for years. She had noted the food writing, the television appearances, the carefully cultivated image of a man with aristocratic taste and establishment connections. She had observed the way he positioned himself close enough to the crown to benefit from its reflected prestige without ever being close enough to be held accountable by its standards. And she had said nothing, because none of it, until Elmidge Park, had crossed the line that she considered unforgivable. Elmidge Park crossed that line in every conceivable direction. In November 2025, Anne received the architectural renderings that Tom's team had commissioned. They had been passed to her through a source she has never publicly identified. The renderings showed the Georgian manor house at Elmidge, with its historic facade preserved, but its interior comprehensively gutted and rebuilt as a luxury hotel. The private lake appeared in the renderings with a small dock and what appeared to be a branded fishing lodge. The woodland had been partially cleared in the designs to accommodate a series of structures that bore no relationship whatsoever to the estate's historic character. Anne reviewed the renderings in private. She showed them to no one immediately. She sat with what she had seen for several days. And then she contacted the legal office responsible for the Elmidge Covenant and asked a single question. Had William been informed of any proposed development at Elmidge Park? The answer was no. That was the breaking point. Not the visits, not the consultants, not even the renderings themselves. The breaking point was the confirmation that after 8 months of planning, after architectural commissions and investor conversations and hospitality consultants taking measurements in the manor house, the man who legally controlled the estate had been told absolutely nothing. Anne picked up the phone, not to Tom, not to Camilla, not even to Charles. She called her own legal advisor, and she told him it was time to file. What happened next inside the palace was something that even those who know Anne well described as surprising in its speed and its completeness. Because she had not just built a case, she had built an airtight one. Camilla caught between sun and crown. There is a particular kind of difficulty that arrives when the person causing the crisis is someone you love. When the institution demanding accountability is the one you have spent decades trying to earn a place inside. When the woman who filed the complaint is the stepdaughter who never fully accepted you, and when the man whose legal rights were violated is the future king who has already made it abundantly clear that his patience with anything connected to your world is running very thin indeed. That is the position Camilla found herself in during the first days of February 2026, and, by every account from sources close to the household, it was one of the most difficult positions she had occupied since the years before her marriage to Charles. When the weight of public disapproval pressed down on her from every direction, she had not known. That is the detail that matters most, and the detail that is hardest to verify. Multiple sources close to Camilla insist that she was genuinely unaware of the full extent of Tom's plans for Elmidge Park. They claim she knew he had visited the estate on a couple of occasions. They claim she was aware in very general terms that he had been thinking about some kind of project connected to rural heritage and hospitality. But the architectural renderings, the investor conversations, the hospitality consultants taking measurements inside a protected royal manor house, all of that, her team insists, she did not know. Perhaps. But here is the question that palace insiders are asking far more pointedly. Should she have known? She is the Queen Consort of Great Britain. Tom Parker Bowles is her son. The estate he was circling belonged to her stepson. If she had any awareness at all that Tom was developing commercial ambitions in that direction, the responsibility to ask a follow-up question, to make a single phone call, to establish whether what he was doing was legally permissible, that responsibility rested with her. And the evidence suggests that phone call was never made. When Anne's complaint landed, Camilla's team moved quickly into damage limitation mode. A senior aide made contact with William's office within 24 hours of the complaint being logged. The message, according to sources familiar with the exchange, was carefully worded. It expressed Camilla's concern about the situation. It emphasized her lack of prior knowledge of Tom's detailed plans, and it offered her willingness to cooperate fully with any review process the household chose to initiate. William's office received the message. His response was brief. He would allow the formal process to proceed without interference. He had nothing further to add at that stage. Read between those words, and what you find is not reassurance. What you find is a future king who has already decided how he views this situation and is not particularly interested in managing Camilla's feelings about it. This was not the first time Tom's commercial instincts had created friction with the palace. It was not the first time Camilla had found herself in the position of defending or distancing herself from her son's ambitions. And William, who keeps a long memory about these things, was acutely aware of that pattern. For Camilla, the timing was devastating. She had spent the better part of the previous year trying to navigate an already complicated position inside the palace. Her relationship with William had been under strain over her continued closeness to Sarah Ferguson. Her public appearances had attracted criticism from people who felt she was performing concern for abuse survivors while privately maintaining friendships with individuals connected to the Epstein scandal. She had been working, slowly and carefully, to rebuild a sense of stability in her role. And now this. A formal royal complaint filed by Princess Anne against her own son had the potential to undo months of careful positioning in a single stroke. It reintroduced exactly the narrative she had been trying to move away from. The narrative that the Parker Bowles family viewed their proximity to the crown as a commercial resource to be exploited rather than a responsibility to be honored. Sources describe Camilla's private response to the complaint as a mixture of fury and fear. Fury at Tom for putting her in this position. Fear about what the formal review process might uncover and how far its consequences might reach. She reportedly summoned Tom to a private meeting within 48 hours of learning about the complaint. Those present described the conversation as brief and extremely tense. Tom reportedly attempted to defend his actions by arguing that his plans for Elmidge Park had never been formally submitted to anyone and therefore could not be considered a genuine violation of anything. Camilla's response, according to one source who was briefed on the exchange afterward, was immediate and unambiguous. She told him that the moment he brought consultants onto that estate without William's knowledge, the damage was done, the intention was visible, the evidence existed, and Princess Anne had it all. What Camilla could not fully control was the institutional momentum that Anne's complaint had set in motion. Once a formal complaint enters the royal household's review process, it does not pause for family diplomacy. It does not wait while a mother and son have a difficult conversation in a private sitting room. It moves forward according to its own timeline, gathering evidence, consulting the relevant legal frameworks, and ultimately producing a finding that carries real consequences. Charles, caught between his wife and his sister, between his son and his stepson, opted for the position he had increasingly retreated to in recent months. He stayed silent publicly. He allowed the process to proceed, and he did not, sources confirm, make any move to intervene on Tom's behalf or to ask Anne to reconsider the complaint she had filed. That silence from Charles was, in its own way, as significant as anything else that happened during those weeks, because it told everyone inside the palace something important. When the choice came down to protecting Tom Parker Bowles or protecting the institution, the king had already made his decision, and it was not the one Camilla had been hoping for. But what did William do when the full picture of what Tom had planned finally landed in front of him? And what does all of this mean for Tom's future inside the royal world? That is where this story reaches its most consequential chapter. Keep watching. The line has been drawn, and everyone knows it. When William finally reviewed the complete file on Elmidge Park, everything that Anne had gathered, the access logs, the architectural renderings, the consultant reports, the investor correspondence, sources say he went very quiet. Not the quiet of someone processing a surprise, the quiet of someone whose existing assessment of a situation has just been comprehensively confirmed. He had suspected for some time that the boundaries between the Parker Bowles world and the royal estate world were becoming dangerously blurred. He had noted the pattern. The commercial proposals dressed in heritage language, the investor conversations happening in the background while polished public statements talked about sustainability and cultural legacy. The gradual, incremental testing of how much access and influence could be extracted from a position that had been granted through marriage rather than earned through service. Elmidge Park was not the beginning of that pattern. It was simply the moment the pattern became impossible to ignore. William's response, once he had reviewed everything, was characteristically precise. He instructed the Duchy of Cornwall legal team to conduct a full audit of every royal property within his purview to identify any unauthorized access or undisclosed commercial interest. Every estate, every property, every access log going back 3 years. The audit was not announced publicly. It did not need to be. Inside the palace, the message it sent was understood immediately and completely. The era of informal arrangements and quietly tolerated boundary violations was over. For Tom Parker Bowles, the consequences have been swift and significant. The Royal Wild at Elmidge venture has been abandoned entirely. The hospitality consultant has been stood down. The architectural renderings exist now only as evidence in a formal complaint file. The investor conversations that had been progressing quietly with Gulf-based partners and the Swiss Luxury Travel Consortium have gone completely silent. Not because Tom chose to walk away, but because the moment the complaint became known within those circles, the commercial appeal of the venture evaporated instantly. Nobody wants to invest in a project that is at the center of a formal royal complaint filed by the Princess Royal herself. Tom has withdrawn significantly from public life in the weeks since the complaint was filed. He canceled 3 scheduled appearances in February 2026. His social media presence, previously active and carefully curated, has gone largely quiet. Sources close to him describe a man who is genuinely shaken by the speed and completeness of the institutional response to what he had convinced himself was a private commercial exploration that had not yet reached the point of causing any real harm. He was wrong about that, and Princess Anne made sure he understood exactly how wrong. For Anne herself, the filing of the complaint represents something beyond a single act of institutional protection. It is a statement about what the monarchy is and what it will not become under the watch of the people who take its future most seriously. She has spent her entire adult life demonstrating through action, rather than words, what royal service actually looks like. It looks like showing up. It looks like doing the work without complaint. It looks like treating the crown's heritage as a sacred trust, rather than a financial opportunity. And it looks like filing a formal complaint against your stepmother's son when he crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. The broader signal sent by everything that has unfolded around Elmidge Park is one that everyone connected to the royal family in any capacity would be wise to absorb carefully. William is building something. He is building an institution with clear boundaries, real accountability, and zero tolerance for the kind of quiet exploitation that has been allowed to accumulate for too long. Anne is building it alongside him. And the people who imagine that their personal connections to the crown place them beyond the reach of that accountability have now been given a very clear and very public demonstration of how mistaken that assumption was. Camilla knows it, Tom knows it, and the palace will not forget what Princess Anne did in January 2026 for a very long time. Princess Anne did not raise her voice. She did not threaten. She simply filed a complaint and let the institution do what it was built to do. The monarchy has a new generation protecting it now. And as Tom Parker Bowles has just discovered, that generation does not negotiate.